Well, thank you all for joining us today and Happy New Year. This is our first event of the year, and we're so thrilled to start 2025 with Ange Matthews. Would love to tell you a little bit about her. Ange is an investor, investment coach, and the founder of Happy Investor Method, where her goal is to make money and wealth fun and accessible for all. Isn't that perfect? Ange came to this work as a first generation investor. She was making about $40,000 and had six figures in debt. Just like, let's put that in our brain. Six figures in debt. And she taught herself how to invest responsibly through money management and investing, which means we all can too. Ange has been featured on NBC, Good Day DC, Fox, NASDAQ, NerdWallet, which I just love that name, Market Watch, and so many others. Ange, welcome to Rebel 11.
Thank you for having me. I am excited to be here.
Thank you. So I wanted to start off by asking our audience a couple of questions. And so where are you currently investing your money? If you could put that in the chat, and I'll just start by saying I'm doing a little in the stock market and um, and a few startups actually. And how about you? Roth IRA and mutual funds, stocks and shares, I have a Schwab account, bank stocks, primarily stock market, Roth, real estate and startups. Great, thank you so much for sharing. And if you're not investing, what is preventing you from doing so? If you could answer that question, does your husband maybe do it all? Are you intimidated? What does that look like? No answers to that question. Oh, time to research, Mary. Thank you. That's really a very important thing. It takes a lot of time. Husband does most of it. I don't know how. Thank you. Intimidated. Thanks, Peggy. And then if you are investing, are you happy with your results? So if you could put that in. So somebody said, I'm not overly interested in investment. We have a trusted financial advisor we rely on. Okay. So that really is helpful as we start today. So Ange, what do you take away from that?
So, what I take away from that is some of us are in it, which is amazing. Some of us are in it, but probably not exactly sure if we're doing it right. And then some of us might be a little investing curious, meaning I feel as if maybe this could be a new hobby that I might enjoy if I understood more about it. And I'm interested in maybe being interested. And so that's kind of what
Yeah.
I get from our chat. And then also, maybe if we're having a conversation in this context with women, then maybe I might be able to actually have a conversation with the guys about it too, or at least understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was so excited to have you on today, because what a great way to start 2025 is investing in yourself and in your money. So I want us to get a little bit grounded here. And you have a grounding exercise for us to start thinking about our money mindset. So take it away, Ange.
Absolutely. So I love to do this because oftentimes when we step into a room, all of our lives step into this room with us. And sometimes it can be distracting. Sometimes we're thinking about dinner. We're thinking about taking care of X, Y, and Z. We're thinking about what we're going to wear tomorrow to our next big event, whatever that is. And so in this moment, what I would like to do is just do a brief grounding exercise around breath. So I want us all to just close our eyes. We're all in our safe spaces. And I want us to close our eyes. And I want you to inhale gratitude. And I want you to exhale abundance. I want you to inhale wealth. And I want you to exhale love. And in this moment with your eyes closed, I want you to think to yourself that there is nothing you can do to prevent money from showing up for you in the way that you want it to. There is nothing you can do to prevent money from showing up for you in the way that you desire it to. And that money loves you always, period. And as we sit here in this moment, we are just going to have a dialogue about how are the many ways that money could create an intentional relationship with us and how we can use that to be vessels of good in the world. And so, with that said, I want you to open up your eyes and feel all the tingly sensations of our money from past, present, and future coming all right here, right now, to be with us in this conversation.
I love that so much. Thank you. What a great way to start. So, why don't we talk about why it is so important for women to invest their money and to know about it?
I think it's important because no one is going to care more about your money than you. Period. So sometimes you might have an advisor, we might have a spouse, you might have a father or a brother or someone else. But if something were to go wrong, or if you somehow wanted more, you can't really go to them and say, like, hey, you didn't do this right for me, because at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our own relationships. And sometimes that sounds really scary, but it's also really empowering. And it's something that I think we shouldn't take for granted, because even up to the 70s, we weren't able to have bank accounts as women. And so this is something that's really new for us, and that not feeling smart enough or not feeling uh, strong enough to manage such a powerful thing like money is very normal, because really and truly we're the first generation to truly have access to this degree to money. Typically it really would be forced upon our spouses or our father or a distant male relative. So first things first is I want to honor if you feel that way, scared or intimidated, or maybe it makes you not feel smart enough. That's okay, because honestly, this is our first go around at this for a lot of us in our
Yeah, I
family.
mean, that's so true. I was telling you earlier in our chat that, I grew up with a single mom in the 70s who had the opportunity to buy a house. And the only reason why was she got in a car accident and she, got this chunk of money. And that's the only reason, because she was a secretary and probably made, $12,000 at the time. So I want to talk about money story because this is so important. Like ours was, rob Peter to pay Paul. Like the big day in our household was when my grandma went down to the bank and borrowed $300. It was like we hit the jackpot. We did. It was like we had more food. We had, all the luxuries we thought that money got us, but we never talked about, or they never talked about how they were going to pay it back. So, what was your money story, Ange? And how do we, look at our money story from the past and how it impacts us today?
Our money story is almost that conversation that we're born into around money. And so for me, when I was raised and around money, my parents were actually quite wealthy. And then when they came to this country, they had to start completely over. So my mother was the youngest of 11, and they had hectares, which is just a ton of land. And so she never understood the need for money because it was never presented to her. Everything was always taken care of. And then for my dad too, he was also pretty well off. So when they got to the country, they just heard credit card as like, okay, that makes sense. You're going to give me a card with money. I mean, I
There
guess
you
that's what
go.
happens in America,
Yeah.
right? And so, but no one ever tells you the story of you have to pay it back, or that you have to pay it back with interest, because they were totally fine with the paying it back part. It was the interest that kind of snowballed away. And so for me, the context in my childhood was always from it's not enough, that there is never enough money to take care of our college, to take care of putting two kids through college. There isn't enough to do Disney World. It was always in the context enough of not enough. And so coincidentally, when I started growing up, I think we all start off with really great money beliefs before we start believing what's around us as kids. And I did tell my mother, why don't you just go to the bank and get the money? And she said, well, money doesn't grow off of trees. Did anyone ever hear that growing up? Money doesn't grow off of trees.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I specifically remember telling her, but it's made out of paper, so technically it does.
Oh, what a smart kid.
I was that kid.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I realized we might be separating in our viewpoints here.
Yeah.
And that's when I
Wow.
always realized, even though we might be born into a conversation of money and have our own money stories, once we start having the power to understand and to get knowledge, well, then we can change it. So I always say I didn't have the best money mentors growing up, but through taking courses, researching, reading books, I was really able to learn from those that weren't placed into my life in the beginning.
So you didn't, so that money story is really interesting because now you talk about how it can be a happy thing to know about money and invest money. So tell us more about the happy investor method and why you want women to know that this can be a joyous process.
The Whoa, it's snowing outside in Georgia. Sorry,
Oh, that's
it just picked
crazy.
up. I'll take it as it's like a magical
Well,
sign.
I like that.
Okay, money for all of us. And
Yeah,
so, with that said, the happy investor method is pretty much a system that I created that really took the stress and the negative emotions around making money make money for you, which is the concept of investing. I like to say it's money coming back with friends. And typically, when people talk about investing, they feel so disempowered. It's almost like this wasn't created for me. It seems really complicated. I don't really enjoy numbers to this extent. And really the feeling that kept on coming up was being insecure, not being confident. And so that's why happy, it's actually the biggest part of the logo. It's because what's the point of having it if you can't be happy with it? And that's a part of the
that's true.
fear around making it. A lot of us think that if you make too much money, maybe you'll eventually turn evil or people wouldn't like you. So when it came to especially around women, what I realized is honestly, in terms of divorce, about 50% of people get divorced. And of course, no one expects when they get married to get divorced. But the reality is, if it's not going to be you, and sometimes it could be us, and we could be like on our second or third divorce. I'll just be honest, I have women in my life like that too. But if it's not you, it could potentially be your mother, your sister, your daughter, your aunt, your cousin. And so I'm an advocate of saying, like, hey, one of us needs to be the responsible one and understand what's going on because at some point, one of us are going to get hit with a really bad situation. And it's not just divorce, it could also be medical. And a lot of times, females are the ones to take care of their family members more so than our male counterparts. And the best part about all of this, which I know not that other stuff wasn't that great, but the best part is that women make better investors. So statistically speaking, we are better decision makers when it comes to money once we have the confidence to do so, which is why I created the happy investor method.
That's fantastic. And I just love this fact, which isn't talked about a lot, that women make better investors. So, like, let's everybody just have that mindset when we're thinking about moving forward. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about today, Ange, is that you can start investing with any amount of money. So talk about, someone who's just starting out and maybe has some debt. They can invest, but so can somebody who has a great job and has more money to invest. So how would you approach each of those opportunities for women?
I think when it comes to investing, and you can let me know, Joni, how you feel about it too. I think a lot of it is feeling empowered or not feeling dumb or that you'll make a mistake. I think as women, a lot of us kind of want to get it right. And if we don't think we're going to get it right, we stand off in the sidelines. And so we really think we're certain about a path. And what I mean to say is sometimes just starting with 50 or $100, it might not make the most money, but percentage wise, you'll still make the same amount as everybody else. So if the market goes up 20, it's gone up 26% this year, 24 to 26%. Well, if you had put $100, a year ago, well, you would have anywhere between 124 and 126 bucks. Yeah, 24 bucks nowadays probably can't get us our favorite drink at Starbucks, if you put all the things and the fixins in it, but it does show us that we were on the right track. So when you put in 1,000 and now you're making 240 bucks, or you put in 10,000 and you're making 2,400, all of a sudden your nervous system sees that this is working. And the best part about it is if you're actually a passive investor, if you're not trying to do day trading and tricky things like that, which I do not advocate, um, it's actually really nice to know that you could have been at the grocery store and your money was making money, or you could have been on a family vacation and you check in on your account and your money's making money. Or sometimes I love to do this with my husband where, he has a really stressful week and I have a stressful week and I show him the accounts and I'm like, you know what though? Our money had a really good week regardless of what was happening here. Like something could go on with our rental property and drain the account for the rental. And I said, you know what? For our stock investments, they're doing okay though. It actually funded this whole ridiculous experiment about being homeowners for rental properties.
Yeah. So one thing about a lot of women is that we're afraid to take risks. And I think this is really important to note. A friend of mine said one day, she goes, my husband and I made about the same amount of money before we got married. And we looked at, our money's journey, and he had so much more money because he did the research, he invested, he had, some key people in his life to do that. And she goes, I was just like taking care of my family and not wanting to lose any money. And that's a real story like that. What would you say to someone like my friend who was, or anyone here today, about taking risks? Because sometimes we're risk adverse.
I think it starts with that belief. Remember when we opened up and we said that affirmation that money loves me and wants to be around me always? Money has this really fun way of evaporating. Anyone ever get a lump sum of money and you're like, whoa, like I'm rich. And then all of a sudden you look back a couple of weeks later and it's like gone down significantly. And you're thinking, I don't actually know technically where all that money went. I have an idea of some of it, but money tends to evaporate. And so it does love to be assigned a specific function. And for those of us who are caretakers or mothers, you know, these kids will suck it out of us. I'll just be honest. If it's not this activity or that activity or college, it just never ends. And so I like to designate investments because I know if I put something in an investment account, that's future Ange, right? That's my insurance to myself to know that even though I love to take care of other people, even though I love to give to great causes, even though I love nice things, that's me making sure that no matter what, future Ange is okay. And so, for if you're on the sidelines and you're feeling nervous and you're thinking, I don't want to mess this up, I just really want you to think about the future you. And if you fully anticipate you being here in like 10, 15, 20 years, it's not always just about retirement, but just 10, 15, 20 years, think about how do you want this life to look? Do you want to still be glamorous? Do you still want to be vibrant? Do you still want to do the things that you love? Find and fund new hobbies? Well, we have to be intentional about making sure that you is as happy as possible and as wealthy as possible to fuel that happiness.
So that comes down to choices that we make now. So can you share a couple of your recent stories? I love the one about the iPhone and then your shopping spree recently.
So one of the things that I realized early on, so I had 6 figures in debt when I started investing. And a lot of people come to me, and it doesn't matter what profession you have, right? Debt is across the board, something that a lot of us share. I mean, whether it's racking up the points to get to free rewards, whether it's a almost low interest rate, it just doesn't matter. It's a part of our culture as consumers. And so when I started investing, I had 6 figures in debt between college. I took a backpacking trip around Europe. You couldn't tell me like anything about that. I thought credit cards were created for me. Of course I did, because that's what my parents taught me. And so, again, that story coming through. And I say all this to say that one of the things that you really want to think about is how can you still be in the game without being in the game? So when I started investing, I couldn't actually afford an iPhone. I was making $45,000 a year. It was my first job out of college, and I had this huge debt. So I could not do the cool thing. I couldn't get an iPhone even though all my friends were having one. And so what I decided to do was instead of getting the phone, which at the time was about 500 plus dollars, crazy, right? Because now it's about 1,000. I
Yeah.
decided to purchase Apple stock. And it's so interesting. When I purchased the stock, it was cheaper than the phone, which was the crazy part about it. But what it did was it made me feel better in knowing that everyone else around me was helping me become wealthier. I felt as if everyone was in on this big secret, or actually maybe they weren't in on it, but they were participating in it, which was how do we help Angela become like ridiculously wealthy? And so every time I saw folks on their nice things, it just made me feel better and not feel without. And I do this for my kids too, even though they're really young. Sometimes I tell them, no, we can't have this. And it's not because we can't afford it. Technically, we could afford whatever they want if I had to be honest about it. But it's about that choice and letting them understand you have a choice here. Just because you can do something does not mean you have to do it.
I love that reminder. And then you recently went on a shopping spree, and your husband said,
So I recently went on a shopping spree, y'all. I don't really talk much about debt besides the fact that I have it. If you have debt and you need someone to help you get out of it, I invested my way out of debt. I don't really talk about it because I'm so like abundance forward. But at the same time, I also think that sometimes you just wanna have something nice, right? And so I have little nice things around me all the time, like I have Chanel lipstick, I have, I like nice things, but I don't go overboard. Remember, it's the choice. And so last week was one of those ridiculously hard weeks. And it wasn't hard because everything didn't work. It was just hard because I got everything I wanted, but underestimated what it would take to get it. And so, which I'm sure a lot of us might resonate with that. And so I decided I needed a shopping spree. I needed that hit of adrenaline, that quick win, that, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I also knew that this is a really golden era right now where if a lot of us do invest our money wisely, especially considering over the next couple of years, it can really catapult us forward. So I've got this hyper sense awareness. And I remember this opportunity coming back during the last recession. Like, oh man, if I had a lot of money now, we could really piece out the system. And so I'm getting a lot of deja vu. There's a lot of market indicators stating that this is the time to propel. So I can't go to Chanel and have a shopping spree right now. It's just not going to be congruent with the life goals. But I went to my husband. I said, I went and I did a little bit of damage. You know, how many of us go someplace and we do a little bit of damage? Anybody here? Am I the only one who does a little bit of damage? I
No,
mean,
let's be real.
just be
Yes.
honest. Girl wants what a girl wants. So I
Yep.
ended up just going to Target and Walmart, y'all. And I just got anything I wanted. And that's what I did. I thought to myself, you know what? Like, how bad can I truly hurt myself here? It's not as if I'm going into Saks Fifth Avenue. It's not as if I'm going to, like, a really fancy department store, which I would love. But honestly, sometimes when I go in there, I can't get everything I want. And that wasn't the feeling I was going for in this moment. The feeling I was going for was I have more than enough. And in Target, I have more than enough. And when the cart was full, the cart was full. And I got new dishes. I got some overalls. I got all these things that I don't even know if I'm going to wear. I'll be honest. But I felt good. And the man was not freaking out about seeing like $10,000 on the credit card bill. And so that's an example of trading the wants for needs.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to talk about investment too in a few minutes. But I shared with Ange earlier that I have a little sign on my computer, no new clothes. And because I have so many that I don't wear, and also there's a local clothing rental company, woman owned here in Seattle called Armoire. And I'm going to start renting clothes because they say that you only wear 20% of what you have in your closet. So I'm going with that this year, and I'm starting off with that intention. So I love that. So let's shift a little bit here because choices is that's such an important conversation to have. But how do we begin to take control of our financial journeys? Talk to us about that. Taking control.
So I'm really big on words. And I mean, if you can't tell, we started the call with an affirmation. And the reason why is because we speak so many words to ourselves in a day. We have a ridiculous amount of thoughts every day. And most of those thoughts tend to be negative for the average person. You have to actually step out of your normal to say positive things to yourself. And so, with that said, I think when you're starting to think that I want to be better with my money, I want to start investing, I think it's really important to realize all the things you've done right with money, that this isn't a story that you're starting brand new, but it's a conversation that we're continuing to have. And the reason why I'm saying that is, has anyone heard the ridiculous statistic that most New Year resolutions don't get kept?
Yes.
Most don't. And I mean, we could just probably take a poll in this room right now and see how many of us kept ours. And it's real, right? But that's life. But the thing is, if you start continuing, so for me, I knew that I wanted to go to the gym this year. I started that in October because I knew what the statistic was and I knew that I just really didn't want it to be that way. Now, it's not as much as I intended, but I'm still going. I went last week. And so
Good
I say
job.
this to say thank you. I appreciate that. It's a lot of work of just actually getting there. Once I'm there, it's fine. The hardest part is getting in the car and getting out the car. Literally just saying like, I'm going to get out the car. And so I want you to think about that for your money, realizing that you have been in the car for a while. This is just another destination on your road, and saying to yourself, I'm going to get out the car because I desire this thing inside that room or this next level. Like I really desire in my heart of hearts. In my heart of hearts, I don't want to ever have to worry about money ever. In my heart of hearts, I don't want my family to ever have to worry about money. And in my heart of hearts, I need to know that there's something more working out there for me besides me. I'm not okay with being the only source or my husband being the only source. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay not knowing what's going on with my account, logging in and being utterly confused. And just admitting that to yourself and saying, okay, we did great up until now. We can do better. And we're going to get out the car. And we're just going to see what this is like when we get out the car. And if we want to get back in the car, we could do that too, but not until we get out. Does
And
that make sense?
do most of your clients come to you with, it's like, I just need help. I want to go the next level. And is that where most people come to you? It's like, Ange, I need help. Or is there a variety of different stories of people that you work with? What's the majority of folks that their questions?
I'd say it's split up maybe around three different personas. There's one persona where they've worked quite a while and they've done really well for themselves working, but they're starting to see the end of the tunnel and they're thinking, this cannot be forever. You know, they say I have another 10 years to retirement, but friend, I probably got about 3 or 4 left in me before this party gets wrapped up. Like, I just can't. And so that's when they start thinking, do I actually have enough to stop? That's definitely, and that's just normal. I think a lot of people, how many of us have not started investing in our 20s? And so for a lot of people, it starts ticking around 40, 50, where you're thinking, so what's the next step here? That's one vertical of folks. The other vertical are people where they're kind of curious. And so they're good, they're set, they're comfortable, you know, investments are going, but they really feel that this could be a new hobby and they just want to know. They're tired of being left out of the conversation. And then also sometimes for these people too, they have a place in their heart where they're thinking, you know, I want to give to causes and I want to do things with my money, but I don't want to check in with anyone. So I have a lot of women who are kind of having their investment kitty accounts where it's like their money, not family, not husband, it's just theirs. They could do whatever they want with it. And they like that money with no strings attached. And then the last bit of folks are people who kind of have good money problems where they came into money or they had a really great year in their business, they got a great promotion, they had an inheritance of some sort, and they don't want to mess it up. They've come across money in this way another time in their life, and they don't really know where it went. And they just know that if done right, this could change their life forever. And so they just want counsel, like advice, education. I'm not an advisor in the sense that I don't invest for people. I'm an educator. So all I do is sit and translate all day, every day. I'm
That's
a
great.
translator.
So let's talk about some strategies for investing. And some of your key strategies would be very helpful right now, as we've talked about all these other things that lead to where we are today. Give us some strategies for investing.
So first things first is you should understand the lay of the land. This is something that has been around for decades and decades and 100 years plus investing. And so you want to understand where you're getting in. There's a super fast lane with the day traders and the bankers. There's a middle lane where you're kind of thinking retirement and you want to optimize those accounts too. And then there's another lane where they're thinking more midterm, you know, like not fully retirement, but between now and then, because there's a lot of things that can happen between now and retirement, let's be honest. And so the other thing you want to think about is once you figure out what lane you want to get into, then you can figure out what kind of style. So how much do you want to put in where you can try to see if this is something you might like? So this isn't even real strategy. This is just how do we prove to our nervous system that this could work for us? And so this is kind of like, what's your play money? What's the money that's not going to make or break the quality of your life? I know some of us are, you know, thinking, Ange, let's be honest here. I have no play money here. All my money is serious. And I'm going to say to you, friend, can we not just go out one night and reallocate the funds? Can we
Have a
say
little
no
more.
to happy hour? Can we say no to cocktails? Can we say no to the restaurant just for one night? Only one night. And then take whatever you would have saved then. Can we say no to just one shopping spree? You know, I dare you when you're in the store, put back one thing. When you're on Amazon, take two things out the cart. And there's the money. Does that make this
That
is the
is
easiest way to get
so
it.
true. But that's one thing that's so important that we forget. It's like we want to treat ourselves, or I mean, we went out the other night. We were, spent $100. We were there for 45 minutes. Seriously, it wasn't even worth it. And it could have put $100 in the stock market. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's kind of how you do it because the money was going to be gone anyway. So I love taking money that was going to be gone anyway and investing it. It takes the pressure off because let's be honest, it was going to be gone. So once you do that, then you can just invest in the regular stock market. There's really only two things you can invest in when you're playing the stock market or when you're out investing in the stock market. You can invest in a fund, which I like to say is a bag of jelly beans, and each jelly bean is a little company. And so you're investing in the whole bag. Like when someone says invest in the whole stock market, there are a lot of funds like that. VTI, it's Vanguard Total Index Fund, SPY. It all sounds like alphabet soup, I'll be honest. But you can simply Google total market fund. And that way you're just investing in everything. And that's a good way to get your money just working more than your savings account. And then the last part that you can do is, well, it's three things. The second thing you can do is invest in a company that you give a lot of money to. And so for us, we recently moved into a new home, and man, we spent so much money with Amazon between the holidays and the move. I remember thinking to myself, man, if we didn't own stock in this company, we would definitely need to own this company now because we have paid, I'm sure someone's like 2 to 3 months salary at Amazon. I'm just in all honesty. And that's simply because we were remodeling a home and then the holidays and all the things and the business, right? So if you think about that, think about go through your credit card statement, your debit card, see where you actually patronize and see how you can make that relationship a little bit more balanced, where they're giving you money and you're giving them money, where you both are in it together. And then, of course, feel free to like read a book, take an investment education class. Like we have a lot of free resources at the Happy Investor Method because I don't want you to do this and then it not work because you just went on a whim and did it and then you say the whole thing doesn't work. That's not true. That's like going to a gym, walking in there and they are playing the wrong music and you walk out saying working out doesn't work. That's preposterous.
So you said, total market fund is one option. Invest in a company you believe in. It. Somebody told me once, it's like if you're out buying Lululemon or, like Vuori is really hot right now, invest in either, a clothing company that you believe in, or like you said, in Amazon or like a Home Depot if you're doing a lot of investment, in your home, for instance. And then, definitely educate yourself. Do you have a book? I mean, outside of the Happy Investor Method, which is a huge resource, but do you have a book that you recommend to folks around
I do.
investing?
And so you've got the books that everyone I'm pulling it up right now. You've got the books that everyone referenced when talking about investing. And so they talk about, Warren Buffett, excellent book, pretty thick. Tony Robbins, excellent book, also really thick. And so you can Google those for investing. But there is a book by an author, and it's called The 80/20 Investor. And I did really enjoy this book because it's called Investing in an Uncertain and Complex World: How to Simplify Investing with One Principle. And Joni, you mentioned that we only wear 20% of our items. And so this is very similar. I'll actually put it in the
Okay,
chat
that'd be
here.
great.
So you mentioned the 80/20 principle. Well, there is an 80/20 around investing as well. And so for a lot of the Happy Investor Method, folks ask me, how did you end up making millions in the stock market when you started with $100? Like, help me here, you
Yeah,
know?
do tell.
how,
I think
how
we
did
all
that
want
work?
to know that.
Well, what I did, and that's why it's really important to start yesterday, right? The best time is yesterday, and if not yesterday, start today, because it's a relationship where you're learning. And so I'm learning which investments work best for me and my goals. And so when I invest in 5 shares or $100, I'm watching to see how you work. If you do well, I reward it with investing more money into it. If you don't do well, I don't just sell you personally. I just leave it there because 500 or $100 is not really going to make or break the quality of my life. But I'll just sit there to remember the lesson, or maybe it'll come back around, but I'm just not going to add to it. And so I love the 80/20 investing principle because what you're doing is you're finding out what are those 20 companies giving you 80% of the results, and you're rewarding those companies. Kind of like our relationships, right? We start off with so many people, acquaintances, and then there's some of those people that we really enjoy hanging around, and they get 80% of our time while the others get 20%. Same thing with our money.
True. That's such good advice. So we had a question here about investing apps like SoFi or Acorns. I'm not familiar with those.
I am. Well, of course I am.
Of course you are.
I have like 25 investing accounts just because I teach it and I like to know what most people are experiencing. So if you've got a question about a platform, do ask it because I've probably got it. So in terms of SoFi or Acorns, or I know some people use Venmo or a Cash App, what I want to let you know is these are apps, right? Predominant like on our phone. Robinhood too is also an app that you can invest with. If I had to choose for an app, Robinhood would be my favorite. Acorns, what it does is it takes money out of your account and slowly over time it will invest it in like that target date fund or that BTI total market index that I mentioned. And you can still select certain companies, but it'll let you buy a partial share and it'll just invest it. My biggest gripe with companies like this is when you want to do that analysis, when I mentioned, hey, we want to see, is this working or not working? They make it so hard to see if it's working. There's really this veil of it's a veil. It's not really transparent at all. And so if you were to see, hey, I bought Apple at this price, how much would it be worth today? It's so hard to actually find that information. And furthermore, in other brokerage accounts like Fidelity or Charles Schwab, you can see it at a glance. So I can see it in one picture, all the things that I own, how much money it made, how much money it potentially lost today and forever. And that's what those apps don't do. And also, furthermore, those apps can shut you down really quickly. So I recently heard a story about someone who had an app and they said, they're forced to liquidate. They had Bitcoin in this app and the app shut down their account for some reason. They were really vague about why, and they were forced to liquidate. And once you liquidate assets, you trigger a tax event. And so
Yeah.
instead of planning around it, they were forced to do something. And I just can't imagine Charles Schwab or Fidelity forcing someone to do that. So if you're going to be serious about this, you want to make sure to get a brokerage account that's serious, like a 1-800 number that you can call in the event something should happen.
That is such good advice because I have a Robinhood account. I'm always like tracking what's happening, but can't see like just like you said, I can't see the detail that I can on my brokerage account. So there's a couple of other questions, but I think Ange gave some really good background. I mean, there's Public or Alina, Stash. I mean, there's so many others out there, but Ange did say that she would recommend Robinhood over others.
Yeah, and if you find that you're starting to enjoy Robinhood in terms of, oh, this is working. So my thing is once you make more than $1,000, it's time to get off of Robinhood. I have it as a play account. It's to me, it's very gamified. So it feels like a game, even though it's very serious, and some games are very serious. You cannot tell LeBron James that what he's playing is not serious, nor can you tell the people who watch him play it. Or for football, for those of us who are in football. And so it's a serious game, but once you see you're actually getting serious about it and you're starting to care, that's when you know it's time to go to Fidelity or Charles Schwab. And a lot of people go to apps because you can get partial shares, but you can do that with Fidelity too. And you can do that with Charles Schwab. One reason I enjoy Fidelity, and I'm not getting paid to say this, I have no partnership with Fidelity at all. But like I said, I got a lot of relationships out there, so I could kind of tell you which one's more solid on the back end. But do love that Fidelity lets you automate your investing. So if you find that something's treating you well and you want to continue doing it, and you want to have a little bit of a set it and forget it. Of course, monitor it, but take that habit and make it intentional. Fidelity does let you auto invest, which I love because over time, the stock market has always gone up and you can always be going up with it if you just auto it.
Okay. And there's a lot of other, I mean, one of your key things is investing in the stock market. There's a lot of other investment opportunities. And you said that it's like once you kind of mastered the stock market to a certain degree, then you start looking at other options. What's your philosophy on that?
There are a lot of forms of investing. And remember when we mentioned earlier about the lane, you want to choose which lane you're in?
Mhm.
There's, day trading is one. There is house hacking
Which
and
you
house
don't
flipping.
recommend.
I don't, especially if you're one to not enjoy stress. Life is stressful as it is. And so having the market jump up and down, that's not fun at all. And so for me, I personally don't enjoy day trading because also I've seen people lose a lot of money with it and it's very scary. But the other thing that I want to say is there's also private investing. So there's options, there's private investing. I myself, we own rental properties. We also have hotels. And I love doing all those things. Our investors in Broadway plays, and money is an extension of yourself. So your money can pretty much be invested in any passion you have. But there's a clear difference between investing for passion and investing for purpose. And when you're investing for purpose and on purpose, I want to make sure I'm investing in something that that's bigger than me. So I know that the stock market, if something were to happen, the government will bail it out as it has in the past. When real estate and the stock market came toe to toe in terms of bailouts, who got the bailout? Do you guys remember who got the bailout? Stock market got the bailout. Banks got the bailout. So you want to think about this. And once you start having your stocks, then you can actually leverage your stock accounts to purchase other assets. And so that's my philosophy on it. It's not a either or, it is a yes and, but it's better to do it responsibly, like stack it on top of each other.
So somebody asked, what industries or types of sound investment opportunities? What are some good resources to learn about it? I think what we'll do there is we'll ask Ange to provide a list of some resources, and we'll email that out to everyone later today along with this video. And then what do you think about investing in local businesses, like being a small business investor?
I love that. And I think it's a great thing to do. But again, we want to separate our passions from our purpose. And sometimes they intermingle, but I'm an angel investor as well. And so that's what you would be. Fancy term, it's angel investor. And so as you're investing in other businesses, you want to think about, is this business profitable? How are you going to get your money back? I think a lot of people have these campaigns like crowdfunding campaigns and all these things out there to help a business owner out, but no one is really clear on the exit. And if there isn't an exit, meaning if there's no way to get your money back, it's not an investment, it's a donation. And so you really want to be clear. Are you making a donation or are you doing an investment? And you want to get that down in a contract. And so everything's great, at the handshake, but you want to make sure you get this in writing and know that it makes it a lot more riskier when you're investing in businesses. Most businesses fail. And
So,
so you want to think about that and also know that you have like investments in the stock market and other businesses that are probably doing way better than the other business you want to help. And then also help the small business if you can.
okay, so that is such sound advice. And I just want to reiterate that you need to be really careful. I've lost some money in small investments for local businesses, and I've also gained a lot of money. So, what's your risk? How risk adverse are you? And you must do your research and have everything signed on the dotted line. But that was such solid advice that Ange just gave everyone. And it can be risky, and you might believe in somebody, you might believe in their product, but if they can't take it to market and make it grow, that's a question you have to ask yourself. Is it going to work?
Mhm.
And do your research. So
Absolutely. It can
very
be great
passionate
when it's
about that.
great.
Yeah, and really bad when it's not.
Really
So
bad.
um are there any other tips, and that we have about 15 minutes left, that you would like to impart on our audience today?
Let's see. Um, One thing I would say is, and there is a question here, someone just said, uh, I'd love to learn more about angel investing, and you're not sure how that works. So I teach a group of women every year. Wealthy Her is what it's called, and I tell them about ways to get into angel investing. And some of the ways that a lot of people don't realize they can get in is through knowledge. And so you can get equity, equity being a part ownership in a company in exchange for knowledge, because not all money is created equal. And so if you're coming to the table, an example would be, one company that we had come to our group to present and to pitch was a pelvic floor therapy, right? And it's very random, very specific to women, right? And so being in a room of women investors was, of course, ideal. And some of the
Obviously.
women investors were able to create a deal where they would come on as an advisor because they have relationships with universities and they were starting to go into clinical testing. And so those relationships, yeah, I mean, it could make or break the company if they work out. And so you can exchange knowledge for equity. It's not always just about the money, especially when you get into private investing. It's what can you bring to the table? And so, again, if you're really passionate about a company and you have something that you can bring a value, speak to them. And sometimes anything is possible. That's really my motto. You just never know.
You never know. So I think this is a good one to, we kind of started with this, but it said, how do you get through extreme stress around money? And this comes back to our money stories a lot of times. Even when speaking about finances and others gives me major anxiety.
I feel
And
you.
yeah, I feel you too. It's hard. I mean, there's so much stress. I mean, for us as women, I think that, not feeling educated or intimidated by money, that is so real. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you. And I would say that take a breath. A lot of times when we are feeling anxious, it's crazy how free air just totally shifts everything. And we hold our breath and we tend to tighten up. And it's just like breathe. Like it's going to be okay. And it's going to be okay because you're still here and you have a shelter over your head. There are people that love you regardless of what happens to money. And for you, I would encourage you to think about w- where is this sick feeling coming from? Because oftentimes it's what money represents to you or something it represented to you in the past that's triggering this feeling of extreme stress. And so I really this is going to be, get your journal out, sit in a place for 20 minutes. See judgment from family mainly. And just I want you to journal like every time you felt this way about money, when has it come up? Where did it come from? When has it come up? And then I want you to take the rational side of your brain and say, it has come up this, and this, but in spite of, this is what happened. And so when you say judgment from your family mainly, is it judgment that you're starting to want a deeper relationship with your money? Judgment from potentially having more money? Or is it judgment that if it doesn't work out, you might have to ask them for money? Because these are all very
All those
valid
things. Yeah.
situations.
Absolutely. And I just also want to say that, I would also encourage you to do your own research and start diving in not only to why you're having those feelings, but to reframe and rewrite your money story, which is what Corinne just said. It's never too late, so start today. And I'm just so thrilled to start this year off with you and us talking about women and money, and that there's so much opportunity here to switch your mindset. And you started this in our conversation earlier today about money is a mindset. And you have so much enthusiasm around money that it can work for you. Like, I want to take that away today. So I so appreciate you being with us. But before we leave, I have some questions. We're going to kind of do a little rapid fire here. So, first of all, love this question always. What would you tell your 25-year-old self today?
I would tell my 25-year-old self to take a breath, is one. Recently, at the age of 25, I fell off an ATV in Mexico and I had a near-death experience.
Oh my
Random
gosh.
topic for another day, but it was real. And I remember feeling, what is the point? I don't understand what the point of all of this is. And it's really survivor's guilt nowadays is what they call it. But there is a point. And so I would tell myself, like, it's okay. Um, there really is no point but to enjoy and experience all of it. And to me, I think if I tell, and I constantly tell myself that, is that what if that's all we had to do was just experience it? I tell people I would love to be a billionaire one day just to see what it feels like. you know, I just want to see what it feels like. I want to have the human experience of experiencing what having more than enough feels like, especially considering I know what it's like to not. And so that's what I would say. I would say do that. I'd say probably invest more, even though I know I didn't have a lot. So I don't
Yeah.
even know why I'd say that. Like I was really trying. I had little businesses. And I'd also say I love you to the people that I love, like, of course, forgive quicker, um, take people for who they are, not what I desire them to be. and just move on and have good moments with them. And I say this because my dad passed away the day before my 30th birthday.
Oh, I'm
And
so
so I had no
sorry.
idea when I was
Mhm.
25. And my dad did tell me on my 25th birthday that if anything were to happen to him, he would choose me to be in the foxhole with. And 5 years later, I was in a foxhole with him through his health crisis. So I would just say all that. Like I know that was a
Yeah,
long
that's
answer,
all
but
so important. Thank you
it's
for
all of
that
it for all of you. Take what you will, but love the people you love unapologetically.
every day. Thank you. And who was a woman who inspired you in your journey?
So I love Madam CJ Walker. She was the first woman millionaire, period. And she was a woman of color, but she was the first woman millionaire,
Fantastic.
period. And she did it by creating hair care products. And so I love thinking about my hair as an extension of my crown. And this woman was out
Oh,
here in these streets and she made a business and she hired other women to take care of their families and she had a sales team. And so Madam CJ Walker, hands down,
love that.
like
Okay,
yes.
terrific. Madam CJ Walker. I'm going to look her up. And you have a couple of children. So, how do you balance your lifestyle with
I do have
work, your husband, and the kids?
I have 2 kids. I call them Kit and Caboodle. So I've got a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And also sometimes my husband could also be one of those year olds too. But I'm clear that they are why I do everything. And I'm really clear on what those boundaries are between my business, my investments, and the legacy and the life I want to set up for the people that I love. And so, because I lost my dad at a fairly early age and I'm taking care of my mom as well, I am clear that every step of the way, I'm creating my future because the future I have right now, or my present, is a future that I created from the past. And so, for them, I just clear boundaries. The way I work is we open up our doors and we help people that we can help with investing. And then when everybody gets in, I'm like, okay, great. Now I'm going to take care of these people and our business that you can buy an online class. But really, I'm not always in the spirit of making money. And especially because our investments make a lot of money too. Um, I'm able to be fully present with those I love and to do those like crazy vacations that cost way too much money. But I spent like $100 and now that $100 is worth 1,000. So really the $1,000 trip is like $100. It gets
That's
real funny with
awesome. Yeah,
money.
that's fun to play with. That's really fun. I have
Yeah.
one more question for you. What are you trying to let go of now that it's no longer serving you?
That it has to be all on me. And I've worked hard. This is an onion type of situation. It's not like a yes or no, a switch, black or white. For some of the things that we get to work on in our lifetime, it's an onion and it just gets deeper and deeper. And so that it doesn't have to always be on me. I don't know if anyone resonates with being a bit of a controller, but for me, I will work myself wary to make sure that it's done in excellence or the way that I desire it to be. And I've learned the lesson with money. So we have investments, but there are other things like even childcare. That was a hard lesson for me that I can find someone to love my children, period. And for me, I'm like, no one can love them like me. And I need to delegate some of these things. Like, let's just be honest. Like, it's okay to request help and support. And so understanding, releasing that control and that it doesn't have to be all on me and welcoming support is one of those onions for me. Yeah.
So, and thank you so much. And tell us how to get in touch with you. And you have a freebie for everyone.
I do. If you go to happyinvestorguide.com, what you can do is I have an audio. I'm getting the link for you all.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I have an audio, and it really is about how to happily create a happy net worth. And the reason a high net worth, and so I'm all about being declarative, when you think about things. And so it's happyinvestorguide.com if you're listening to the replay. If you're in the chat, I just put it in. But 7 mistakes keeping you from creating a happy high net worth is what it's called. And my goal is that everyone just has a happy relationship with their money. And they realize that through your investments, you can be fully expressed. And so that's what I've got for you all. I mean, of course, if you have any specific questions, email is my love language. So once you put your information here into the box, you will get an immediate confirmation email. And that's really what we do. You know, right now we have a webinar coming up in about a week about why I think this is the 4 years that we have been really waiting for to catapult wealth, just based on economic triggers. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But if you're thinking about investing, I want to let you know that that it's probably thinking about you. There's a pull and a tug with energy. And so if you're out there thinking, maybe I want to learn more, follow that dream of yours and learn more because you just don't know why you might need it.
And I can't thank you enough. What a delight to have you on today. And I put in the chat for everyone the happyinvestormethod.com/live. You can go to her website. She also has a wonderful Instagram account under the Happy Investor Method. So definitely check her out there too.